A racist hotel manager tried to kick out a young black woman, but he froze when her powerful father arrived. What happened next exposed his racism and left everyone in shock. The Grand Palmer Hotel stands tall in downtown Chicago. Its marble columns and crystal chandeliers are testament to old money and privilege. For over 100 years, this landmark has hosted presidents, celebrities, and business titans. Tonight, its lobby buzzes with guests in designer suits and evening gowns, all treated with the legendary Palmer hospitality, all except one. Maya Johnson steps through the revolving doors, pulling her carry-on behind her. At 28, she's already making waves as one of the few black female architectural engineers invited to speak at this week's prestigious industry conference. Her tailored blazer and sleek business dress couldn't be more professional, but the moment she approaches the front desk, something shifts in the air. "Good evening. I have a reservation under Johnson." Maya's voice is confident, polished from years of presenting designs to skeptical clients. Richard Palmer III barely looks up from his computer. The hotel manager's family name is displayed prominently on his gold nameplate, a reminder of whose hotel this really is. "Johnson? I'm not seeing anything here." His tone suggests this is somehow her fault. Maya watches as Richard swiftly checks in a white couple beside her, all smiles, and, "Enjoy your stay, Mr. and Mrs. Davidson." The contrast is striking. "That's strange. I have the confirmation right here." Maya pulls up the email on her phone, sliding it across the marble counter. Richard glances at it with thinly veiled annoyance. This must be some sort of system error. We're actually overbooked tonight. Just 10 feet away, another desk clerk welcomes a white businessman with, "We've upgraded you to a suite, Mr. Thompson. No extra charge." "My reservation was confirmed 3 weeks ago," Maya states firmly, her heartbeat quickening, even as her expression remains composed. She's been here before. Different building, same story. Richard slides her phone back with a practiced smile that never reaches his eyes. "Perhaps you'd be more comfortable at the Hyatt downtown. I'd be happy to call them for you." The insult is clear, but carefully worded. Maya notices several guests glancing over, then quickly looking away. "I'd like to stay at the hotel where I made my reservation, thank you." Maya hands over her credit card. Richard takes it between 2 fingers, examining it as if it might be counterfeit. "I'll need to verify this card." When Maya's phone vibrates with a text, she glances down. "Just parked. Coming up now. Everything okay?" Dad Richard returns, his face a mask of practiced regret. "I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to ask you to make other arrangements. Security can assist you to the exit." As a uniformed guard approaches, Maya does something unexpected. Instead of protesting loudly or immediately mentioning her father's imminent arrival, she calmly takes out her phone and begins recording. "I'd like to speak with your manager, please." Her voice is steady, but her eyes burn with quiet determination. "And I'll be documenting what happens next." What happens next will change everything, not just for Maya, but for the entire Palmer legacy. Richard's face tightens at the sight of Maya's recording phone. "That won't be necessary, and I should inform you that recording isn't permitted in this establishment." As Maya holds her ground, a memory flashes through her mind. She's 24 again, standing before a room of white executives who speak over her presentation. "Perhaps the junior assistant should take notes instead," they had said, not realizing she was the lead engineer. Back then, she had stumbled, doubted herself. Not anymore. "Actually," Maya replies calmly, "Illinois is a one-party consent state for recordings, but I understand your concern." She doesn't raise her voice or wave her hands. Every black professional knows the unwritten rules. Angry black woman is a label that sticks, so Maya has mastered the art of standing firm without seeming threatening. It's exhausting, this constant calibration of tone and expression, but tonight it's serving her well. Richard shifts uncomfortably, glancing at the growing number of onlookers. "Security," he calls sharply. "Please escort Ms. Johnson from the premises." At the same moment, across the city, Richard's father, Robert Palmer Sr., sits in his study reviewing property reports. A framed photo shows Richard's graduation, his father's hand clamping his shoulder. "Palmer men don't make mistakes," the accompanying memory echoes. "Palmer men maintain standards." The weight of this family legacy presses down on Richard every day, though it doesn't excuse what he's doing now. Back at the hotel, the security guard approaches hesitantly. He's caught between his job and what's clearly happening. "Sir," he says quietly to Richard, "perhaps we could check availability again." Richard silences him with a look. This woman doesn't have a valid reservation and is refusing to leave. That's trespassing. A few feet away, two hotel employees exchange glances. One, a white woman in her 50s, looks down, uncomfortable but unwilling to intervene. The other, a younger black woman named Tara, watches with tight lips and knowing eyes. Maya feels the familiar churning in her stomach. Stand your ground or walk away. Make a scene or swallow the injustice. Black professionals face this impossible choice daily. Speak up and be labeled difficult. Stay silent and lose your dignity. "I understand you have policies," Maya says, her voice deliberately measured, "but I also have rights as a customer with a confirmed reservation." This isn't just about one night in one hotel. Maya sees the patterns clearly, how spaces like this conference, like this hotel, remain exclusive through 1,000 small rejections. Each misunderstanding and unfortunate overbooking maintains invisible barriers her credentials can't overcome. Tara, the front desk assistant, moves with purpose behind the counter. As she walks past Maya, she slips a business card onto the counter. On the back, hastily scribbled, "Hotel policy guarantees accommodations for confirmed reservations. MZR, Robert Palmer, Sr." Richard's face flushes as he notices the exchange. "That's enough," he snaps at Tara. "Return to your post." The security guard shifts his weight uncomfortably. Other guests now openly stare, some recording discreetly on their phones. Richard's voice rises. "Ms. Johnson, you are misrepresenting yourself. We have no record of your reservation, and you are now trespassing on private property." Maya picks up the card, understanding immediately. "According to your hotel's own policy," she begins, "guaranteed reservations must be honored, even in cases of overbooking. I believe that comes directly from management." Richard's composure cracks. "You don't know anything about our policies. Security, remove her now." The lobby falls silent as all eyes turn to the confrontation. Richard's voice has carried across the marble floors, echoing for everyone to hear. The security guard looks torn, frozen in place by the public spectacle. And that's when the hotel's revolving doors spin once more. A distinguished older man in an impeccable suit enters, taking in the scene before him with experienced eyes. Maya doesn't turn around. She doesn't need to. The question hanging in the air isn't just whether Maya will get a room tonight. It's whether the Grand Palmer Hotel will finally have to face its unspoken biases, brought to light by precisely the wrong person to discriminate against. The distinguished man who enters the lobby doesn't announce himself with fanfare. He simply walks forward with the quiet confidence of someone who has faced down hostility many times before. "Maya," he says, his deep voice carrying across the now silent lobby. "Is everything all right?" Dr. William Johnson stands beside his daughter, taking in the scene with practiced eyes. His tailored suit and silver-streaked hair speak of success, but it's the weathered determination in his expression that truly commands attention. "Dad," Maya says, relief mixing with resolve in her voice. "I was just explaining to Mr. Palmer that my confirmed reservation seems to have disappeared." Richard's expression flickers, first confusion, then a dawning wariness. He's smart enough to know something has shifted, but not yet sure how. Doctor. William Johnson. Maya's father extends his hand to Richard. My daughter is speaking at the architectural conference tomorrow. I was planning to surprise her by joining her for dinner. It's not the bombshell moment of a hidden CEO. It's something far more potent. Recognition slowly crosses Richard's face. Dr. Johnson, the attorney? That's right. Dr. Johnson's voice remains measured. I've specialized in civil rights and discrimination cases for 30 years now. He doesn't need to raise his voice or make threats. His mere presence carries the weight of countless courtrooms and hard-won victories. Richard swallows hard, his eyes darting to the lobby entrance as if seeking escape. I notice my daughter is recording, Dr. Johnson continues conversationally. A habit I've encouraged after documenting patterns of discrimination at establishments exactly like this one. He glances at the other guests who are watching. Did you know the Palmer hotel chain faced a class action lawsuit in 2018 for systematically losing reservations made by black and brown customers? The security guard takes a step back, clearly wanting no part of what's unfolding. That case was settled, comes a new voice from across the lobby. Robert Palmer Sr. approaches, his expression grim but controlled. Unlike his son, the elder Palmer recognizes Dr. Johnson immediately. William, he acknowledges with a curt nod. It's been what, 7 years since we sat across from each other in mediation? 8, Dr. Johnson corrects politely. Your company made certain commitments at that time. The tension between father and son is palpable as Senior Palmer turns to Richard. What exactly is happening here? Richard's composure cracks further. Sir, this woman's reservation wasn't in our system. I was following protocol for what? Senior Palmer cuts him off sharply. For turning away a qualified guest with a confirmed reservation while I'm being tagged in social media posts about discrimination at our flagship property. Richard's face flushes with a complex mix of emotions: embarrassment, resentment, and the dawning realization of consequences. I was maintaining our standards, he says stiffly, echoing his father's long-time mantra. No, Senior Palmer says coldly. You were undermining everything I've worked to correct. The reference to past problems hangs in the air, a reminder that this isn't an isolated incident, but part of a pattern Senior Palmer had supposedly addressed. Dr. Johnson begins to speak, but Maya steps forward. If I may, she says, her voice clear and steady. All eyes turn to her. Mr. Palmer, Maya addresses the elder man directly. What's happening tonight isn't about one reservation or one hotel manager. It's about spaces where people like me still have to prove we belong, despite our achievements or contributions. Her words carry the weight of 1,000 similar experiences, articulated with dignity rather than accusation. I'm an architectural engineer specializing in sustainable urban design. Tomorrow I'm presenting research that could help hotels like yours reduce energy costs by 40%. But tonight, I'm just another black woman being told there's no room for me. Maya gestures to the recording on her phone. I don't want to sue your hotel, Mr. Palmer. What I want is for the next person who looks like me to walk through those doors and be treated with the same respect as everyone else. The lobby remains utterly silent. Even the ambient music seems to have paused. Your company made commitments 8 years ago, Maya continues. Trainings, policy changes, diversity initiatives. Yet here we are. The question isn't what happened to my reservation. It's why those commitments didn't change the culture. Senior Palmer's expression shifts from defensive to something more complicated. A grudging recognition of a truth he's tried to address, but perhaps never fully confronted. The moment hangs in perfect tension. Maya standing tall, Dr. Johnson watchful beside her, Senior Palmer calculating his response, and Richard caught between his privilege and the consequences of his actions. What happens next will reveal whether real change is possible, or if this is just another performance of apology without transformation. Senior Palmer breaks the heavy silence first. His response isn't the blustering denial of a man caught, but the measured consideration of someone confronting a failure he thought he'd already fixed. "Ms. Johnson," he says, stepping forward, "you're absolutely right, and I owe you an apology that goes beyond this evening." He turns to the front desk. "Please prepare our finest suite for Ms. Johnson immediately. The Palmer Hotel will cover all expenses during her stay." But Maya doesn't immediately celebrate this victory. She simply nods, understanding that comfortable rooms and free stays don't solve the underlying problem. "Thank you, Mr. Palmer," she says, "but I'm more interested in what happens after I leave." Senior Palmer's gaze sharpens with respect. "I understand." He turns to Richard, whose face has become a mask of conflicting emotions, embarrassment battling with defensive pride, a flash of resentment giving way to the first tiny seed of recognition. "Richard, effective immediately, you're on administrative leave," Senior Palmer says. "When you return, it will be after completing the diversity training program we apparently need to strengthen." Richard stiffens but says nothing, caught between his father's authority and his own wounded ego. As the crowd disperses and Maya's luggage is whisked away by suddenly attentive staff, Tara, the young employee who slipped Maya the policy information, approaches cautiously. "Thank you," she says quietly. "I've worked here 3 years and—" She glances around before continuing. "You're not the first, but maybe the last." They exchange a look of perfect understanding, the silent recognition between those who've navigated the same treacherous waters. Later that evening, Maya and her father share a quiet moment in her lavish suite. "You handled that remarkably, Doctor," Johnson says, pride evident in his voice. Maya smiles tiredly. "I had a good teacher, but Dad—" Her expression grows serious. "We've been having these same conversations for decades. Your generation fought these battles. Mine is still fighting them. Sometimes I wonder if anything really changes." Dr. Johnson considers this. "Change isn't a straight line, Maya. It's a constant push against the current. We've moved forward, even if we haven't reached the shore." The next day, Maya delivers her presentation on sustainable urban design to a packed conference room. Without directly referencing the previous night's events, she weaves in points about inclusive architecture, how spaces can either welcome or exclude through 1,000 subtle signals. "The buildings we create," she tells the rapt audience, "aren't neutral structures. They embody our values and assumptions about who belongs." Her presentation receives a standing ovation. Yet afterward, Maya notices how a senior partner from a prestigious firm addresses questions to her male colleague instead of her. How another attendee expresses surprise at her credentials. The battle continues, just in different forms. But something else happens too. Word of the Palmer Hotel incident spreads through the conference. Other minority architects approach Maya, sharing similar experiences. Within weeks, what begins as informal conversations crystallizes into a professional support network for minorities in architecture. 6 months later, Maya returns to Chicago for another conference. This time, as she enters the Grand Palmer Hotel, she notices changes immediately. The front desk staff now reflects the diversity of the city itself. A large sign prominently displays the hotel's anti-discrimination policy. As Maya approaches check-in, she's greeted warmly by Tara, now wearing an assistant manager's badge. "Welcome back to the Palmer, Ms. Johnson," Tara says with genuine warmth. "We've been looking forward to your return." Maya notices Richard working at a desk in the back office. He looks up, meets her eyes for a moment, and gives a small, complicated nod. Not friendship, certainly not absolution, but perhaps the beginning of understanding. As Maya walks to the elevator, she reflects that progress isn't found in perfect victories or happy endings. It's built through difficult conversations, accountability, and persistent pressure against the status quo. The journey isn't over, for her, for this hotel, for society, but each step forward matters. In architecture and in justice, the most important structures are built one carefully placed stone at a time.